Hey, it's Tori Haggerty from Tuscan Club University's Fair Lending School. This week's Fair Lending Short, I want to talk about exceptions, and I want to talk about exceptions from a risk management standpoint. So I train lenders all the time. I've trained thousands of lenders over the years. And I always say, sometimes I joke, I say, it's my goal at the end of this training to scare you from ever making a loan ever again. And now that's not true. And I try to lighten the mood when I do fair lending training because honestly, a lot of times it's pretty boring. But the idea is when you're doing your exceptions process is to minimize exceptions. So exceptions are both a risk management issue and a compliance/fair lending issue. They're a risk management issue because every time you go outside of loan policy, you are making a riskier loan. They're a compliance/fair lending issue because every time you go outside of policy, you risk doing that on a prohibited basis. So I say this all the time, strong policies and procedures consistently followed is one of the best ways to mitigate fair lending risk. But every time a lender makes an exception, they open that door up a little bit more. And then they make another exception and they open it up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, if you make too many exceptions, you blow that risk door right back open and those great, concise, clear policies and procedures lose their effectiveness. So whenever I train lenders, I say, listen, exceptions aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's going out of your way to do right by your customer and to try to get them approved. But when you do exceptions too often, you are taking on so much risk and you risk doing it on a prohibited basis, which is essentially what we're trying to prevent. Do you always make exceptions for men and not women? Do you always make exceptions for white borrowers and not minority borrowers? Do you always make exceptions in this low minority neighborhood but not this high minority neighborhood? Every time you make an exception, you open up that risk a little bit more. Exceptions should be just that. The exception. If you make exceptions 50, 60, 70% of the time, it's no longer exception. That's your norm. You either need to scale back on the number of exceptions you're making, or you need to rewrite policy to better reflect the way you actually make loans. Thanks for watching.